Welcome to Azure Infinitum Podcast, Episode 7. This is your host, Hikaru Kazushime from Runaround Network, also known as Reika Fujishima in the Azure Infinitum community. Today, here with me, I have generals of the Azure Infinitum community, Sebastian Lacroix,
Hello there.
Shalindra Quartztail,
Here we are again.
and Stefan Vonwest.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about a mix of things, actually. We've got patch 5.5 spoilers for Final Fantasy XIV. We're also going to be talking a little bit later towards the end of the podcast about some of our favorite Final Fantasy or Square Enix titles specifically. I know one time we talked about favorite like PS1 RPGs a few episodes ago, but this time we're going to touch base on some favorite Square Enix or FF titles from any console that we played over the years. And another part of the podcast is going to majorly focus on Azure Day March 2021 thoughts and coverage, where we go over a bit about what happened this past weekend, our major quarterly celebration, Azure Day Weekend, 2-day event that has over 20 plus hours. I think it was about 24, 25 hours of events. This past weekend is actually one of the bigger ones we've had it in a while, the first one of 2021. So let's talk about Azure Updates. Coming to our community this month was not only Azure Day Weekend 2021, but it also marked the start of the beginning of what we call our Resurgence Carillion plan that we've talked about extensively on previous episodes. That's our big community overhaul that we have been working on for close to a year now. It is a massive undertaking that basically compiles a list of improvements, overhauls, and enhancements to Azure Infinitum. We've gone over things like ranks. We've been building our active core and our membership. We have improved a lot of our events. We're now running, upwards. I think we're at like 14 events a week right now. Just a lot of improvements overall, and we've taken a look at our community and just many corners of it to say, hey, this needs improvement, and we'll go over this corner and be like, okay, there, and then we take a lot of feedback, and overall it has added up to a pretty extensive list of changes. Folks that have been here for many years might notice that the activity in the community is rising very heavily right now at this time, and it's kind of a consistent rise. I've also noticed, or may notice, that there is quite a bit more content being provided for events, besides just the general like raids, maps, Wondrous Tales, things like that for Azure. We're now looking at supporting a pretty solid Blue Mage event on Sunday, including PvP, which has recently risen quite a bit here in interest in Azure Infinitum. And more is to come. We've now got double Monstrous Mondays trial parties with the latest EX trial, Emerald X, taking place at night on Mondays, followed by the rotating Shadowbringers trials on Mondays. So days like Mondays, days like Sundays that have previously been a bit less active in the past, or maybe featured one major piece of content, is now featuring double events. So we're very proud about a lot of that and where things are going from here. So what exactly we have to look forward to is not only the standard year of Azure Days and Azure Day Weekend, seasonal Azure Days, things like that we do quarterly or seasonally, but we're also looking at expansion year. And as we talked about in a previous episode of the podcast, that gives us a lot of time. The expansion is actually not launching in its usual time slot, which is roughly the June-July period. That's been a consistent thing since the beginning of 14. However, now we're looking at fall this year. And leading up to fall, we're basically looking at that like, hey, we've got a lot of extra time. Why don't we continue just kind of making the most out of this overhaul plan, this RC, we call it RC for short, stands for Resurgence Carillion. That is Latin for Azure Rising project. And overall, this is going to create one of probably the most active and organized Azure Infinitums that we've ever seen. Ever ever before. We're not only trying to cap out our roster in Final Fantasy XIV, we are also trying to improve the active core of that. And I know I say that phrase quite a bit around our community, but what that really means is improving that ratio of online to offline activity, and there's a lot of steps to doing that. Some of that includes having a very firm activity policy on folks that go away for months at a time, and then recruiting people, keeping recruitment open and fresh blood flowing through the community, and always keeping an open mindset to who may want to be joining us, and making sure that there's space available as well. So with all of the work being done to Azure Infinitum through this time, we are very, 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 very hopeful for the future, because with all the months from here forward, we're already seeing massive improvements right now. We're already starting to talk about finalizing Resurgence Ceruleum. However, there's a little bit more to go. So if you're listening and you're in Azure, let us know some of your thoughts in the comments. You can comment on YouTube, or let us know, give us some feedback. We kind of want to know sometimes like how we're doing. We also have a suggestion box in the Discord at the very, very bottom of the channel list. Let us know what we're doing. Let us know what you've noticed lately, especially if you've been here a while. Maybe you've seen some big changes to events or activity. You should be seeing quite a big burst lately of improvement. We're seeing a lot of evening activity increase tremendously, and so we always have the mindset of trying to make the other times than the tripping on my words here, the North American primetime hours. We always have other times in mind, and we're always trying to adapt to folks when we have like a lot more folks that are working like at night, trying to create more night events. A lot of that has been extremely successful, and then morning events I think might be that last frontier that we want to master as we go, because that's always kind of been either hit or miss. But we have a lot of stuff moving forward. The recent PvP tournament that we had the very, very end of February. It was February 28th, and we crowned a new Infinitum champion. That was Lucinda Nakia. Congratulations on winning the Infinitum Championship. Felled Felana Breeze in an incredible match that I think most of us will remember forever. That was something. That was a heck of a match. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yes, that was a match to contend with. Even my heart rate was going up watching Felana just give it her all to hold that crown.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I was listening because I was driving at the time, but I was listening to whatever play by play, and I was like, wow. So just even listening to it, not even seeing it, it was just impressive.
Oh yeah. They have, especially Lucinda. It's kind of funny because specifically about the PvP tournament, Lucinda and Faye have been practicing really, really hard, or they had been practicing really, really hard leading up to that point, and they'd actually had some matches against each other, like just some skirmishes against each other, and there was a thought going around in the community like, well, what if these two end up in the finals? and they did. Well, actually not the actual finals, but the championship match, I should say. The final was also an incredible match, and then we had the championship match, and Lucinda is now our current champion. So the next tournament is not dated just yet totally. I think we might have it on one of our lists, but we haven't announced that to the community yet. So that's going to be sometime towards, let's see, March, April, May. So it's going to be sometime in May, I believe. And the next Azure Day will be announced for either late May or early June for the next Azure Day weekend. But we're going to have that, and then we're looking at later this year Summerfest and possibly another Azure Day prior to the expansion, which is unheard of. But that also lines up with the whole the difference in the expansion launch this time. The expansion launching in fall instead of summer. Typically, the May or June Azure Day would be the one that we would have our traditional expansion going away event. That's something that we've done every 2 years for quite a while now. And that might actually be something we see at Summerfest instead of the regular May or June Azure Day weekend. So that's going to be interesting difference this year. Not a whole lot of other differences to come, but the increasing activity in Azure and the amount of events that are going on is like now reaching 3 to 4 times what Azure has sustained leading up to 2020 and 2021. So yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. There has been a new rank added, actually, Scout Sergeant in the last, I think it was about a month and a half ago that we added that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned it on the last podcast, but Scout Sergeant is a new rank in the community that actually allows us to visibly see, which scouts have actually gone beyond just the. And when I say just, I don't mean to, make it not seem as great, because scouts are the first step up from member. They keep a good watch on the community. They jump in to help in runs. They can help with applications, recruitment. But the scout sergeants are people that we recognize for being extra active. So they're not only doing those things, but they're actually taking a lot of initiative to meet other needs, or maybe they're learning to host events in the future, or they might be in training. And so it's actually better than just having scouts and scout sergeant, or sorry, scouts and scout captains. Scout captains being our basically, I guess you could call them like junior hosts. Like they're hosts that get assigned to helping run events, but they're still in a scout rank, so they're not in an authority position, but they have authority for a specific event. And so this is our kind of how our support team is organized, for those that may not know. And the scout captains are head of that support team. So scout sergeants is that rank that kind of bridges the gap between scouts and scout captains. So that's a nice new update to our rank system, and we found that to be pretty effective, actually. I know that a lot of the first scout sergeants were really happy to receive those promotions. I believe that was last month, and we are now expecting to look at growing these. I'm thinking as I'm talking here, we're looking at growing the whole scout system, the whole initiative, a little bit further, also to correspond with our overhaul Resurgence Cerulean project. We want to actually see a larger team of scout captains being formed out of really active scout sergeants who are passionate about leading these events and helping with them. And that way, the amount of backups and leads that we have will actually increase. So our members can actually be very comfortable to know that there's always going to be a good chunk of people that are cleared for backing up and leading these things. So that's another way that we're preparing, especially with high and growing activity. When we get to the expansion, and then when we get to raids after that expansion, within the month or two following, when they always release, specifically talking about the Pandemonium raids coming most likely this winter. Because if it's going to be, it could still be in fall, but we don't know what time in fall that Endwalker is going to launch. So we also don't know what time Pandemonium is going to launch. So depending on when one launches, then the other one's going to follow a month, 2 months later. And whenever that is, we could literally see more like double, triple attendance to these events that we have right now. And with that in mind, now early on, we want to make sure that we are building those blocks now and putting those people in place that are going to be leading then when we get there. So if we have 6, 7, 8 man parties grouping in the yard, we've got all the firepower we need to make sure they happen. So we want our community to know that as we grow our community, as we grow in activity, and as we grow ranks, we are really ahead of the curve, making sure that when we reach certain content in the future, or we reach higher levels of activity, we have lots of people in place to run them. So just in case anybody out there is wondering that. Other than that, let's see, what else is on the horizon, you guys? If I'm not remembering
On
anything.
the horizon, just to give a little bit of a sneak peek, I know there's a few scouts and other people who are already aware of this, but very soon we're going to be adding a Palace of the Dead style event to our main roster. Kind of keeping everything close to the chest right now because it's still being in the works, and I'm still working with a very prominent scout sergeant to make it all happen. But for those listening, keep your eyes open.
Yeah, thank you, Seb. That's something that I know a lot of people in our community have asked for a while, is a Palace of the Dead event, or content that is utilizing the deep dungeons, period. And not only that, but low level. low level events. And this is actually a great place to talk about this, because we've tried to get it out there, but because we can't know what everyone's thinking all the time. Every now and then there is moments where people will ask the same question. It's kind of actually one of the most common frequently asked questions here in Azure is where are the low level events? And what some may not realize is that there are several events a week that 50s can join into, starting at 50. And beyond that, that's kind of like where things start to happen in the game. Like, prior to 50, you're really just trudging through ARR and trying to get your bearings and unlocking what you're able to do. But 50 plus, there are a few events. You can come to Mountathon and get your pony mounts. You can, start to do Wondrous Tales and get clears on earlier Primal EXs if you need. Things like that. And so some people may or may not realize that, but others might and still say, well, we want more leveling or low level events or leveling events. Excuse me. And one reason why that's hard to actually pull off is because it's not viable for consistency. Like, people can level, like there might be a handful in the FC that are actively leveling at the time an event happens, and an event requires hosts, because we set that requirement. We want to make sure they're hosted accurately following Azure protocol, and that the protocol is uniform to all of our events so that everybody's on the same page and nobody's confused. So having all that in mind, it takes us a moment to put the right person in place at the right time with the right advertising, with all the banners across our entire community. We're talking like 4 calendars, several websites, making sure awareness gets out, talking about it in places like the podcast, grand assemblies, and then on top of that, there's even more effort to make sure that they're held consistently, that there's hype, in the chats about them, and then see how they go for a few weeks before we decide if it's viable or worth it or not. But when some people are leveling right at the time of that event, or they save their leveling for that event, they want to come to it, like say POTD for example. POTD works in a way that other events might not, and that's why we want to try it. And because people have been asking for POTD over the years, we're kind of like, okay, let's give it a shot. With say we had an event where everybody just grouped up and did leveling roulette together. I mean, that's not really viable for an event, because you got to remember too that the event is something that people set time aside for, as well as the hosts, and then it also takes energy from our whole support team and council, coming from the top down to make those things happen. And we want to make sure that when we do provide those events, that they're focusing on the greatest needs and the most widest needs, because like the whole purpose of the community outside of events is still to play together, right? So if you're playing together, then there should be ways for members to be, or at least this is how some of us view it, is that there should be no reason why people can't organize, a run for this or a run for that on their own as well. And our members are actually more than welcome to make their own sort of event. We just ask that they don't advertise or try to take away from official event grouping. But any of those other times, I mean, there is nothing wrong with members setting up like a leveling run, or maybe a bunch of fate grinds, or things that can help each other level. I know that.
I see that all the time. I see that all the time too.
I
do see very often our members will go, hey, I'm going to start doing a 4-5-6 leveling run. Who wants to go along? And you'll get 3-4 people going. So.
Oh yeah, and and that's the thing. When there's like three or four is a pretty accurate number too, because excuse me, allergies are horrible today. That's a pretty accurate number as well, because that's about what you'll see at one time for those that might want to level at that moment, have something to level, have something ready to level, and then if that was an event though, that doesn't cut it for attendance, and so that makes it to where there's a difference between a host coming out, shouting all the things I mentioned earlier that went into making an event happen, and then only having a couple people show is not viable. That's for an event, but that doesn't mean that a support member or a leader can't take someone through something or something like that. It's just that's where it comes down to our members. We expecting them to be a little proactive on those types of things. So unless we had something that was like a great need surrounded by leveling and also had other rewards, then it's kind of hard to make that low level style event. And I know there's other things that low levels can do besides just leveling. I know over the years people have suggested fate parties for like fate achievements or fates that are chained that might give you some kind of reward at the end. But the only problem is, excuse me, it comes down to that same concept that it's such a niche thing that only a few people will be interested in, and with with spending power to host it, it's just not viable. So that's basically everybody's answer on why we don't have a lot of those low-level events. And then now we're looking at the game in current time. People level so quick. And I know that not everybody speeds through the game, but you're still going to be up there before you know it. And the fact that we do most of our events are always there. Like they're not going anywhere. Raids change every 3 to 4 months because we swap between what's in the content. And we found a very perfect like medium between how long we do certain raids and how long we don't. And we start with what is it? Odd patches are 24 mans. Even patches are 8 mans. And for those that aren't in the end game, just so you know, the 8 mans are for getting gear from the raids, and the 24 mans are as well, but the biggest importance of the 24 mans is the coins that you get. And so people want those coins, but they don't really care much about those coins at a certain point, like 2 or 3 weeks prior to the launch of the next patch, and then they're getting ready for the next 8-man raids. And so Azure always has had a pattern since the days of Alexander, when that was in back in late 2015, to flow between meeting the needs for the main 8-man raids, not Savage but normal, which is what a large percentage of people that are at the level cap will need, and then going into the 24-man raids, and then getting those items, and then going back to the 8-mans. And every now and then we do try to do something like Old Raid October, or we'll have ways where we try to maybe meet needs of some people that might want somebody to go through with them and explain mechanics. But 24-man raids are also really easy to queue for, and despite late night queues that are really long, or maybe DPS queues, they're still really easy to queue for, and they're not things that are actually typically hard. So I mean, anybody can technically go through Ivalice, in a day if they need, rather than us putting all this energy out to try to make one event for a few people just so they can do Ivalice and then go on and get their relic. So that's kind of the difference between where we actually expect people to take their own initiative and where we supply big events. There's a fine line, but it doesn't mean that we don't care about people's content if they're lower level or if they're needing to older 24-man raids. We just have to keep our flow going of supporting the current content as an FC, and the rate and the ratio that we're seeing people get caught up by the time we're still running events in there. We'll have people like maybe 4 or 5 months ago were brand new to the game. They're reaching Shadowbringers now. We're still running the same events. And then if they missed like near raids, for example, last time, well, we're doing near trilogy again because the third one's coming out. So
and we always do all three.
Right, and we always do all three because you need all three for the coins. So we kind of have this system that we found to be, pretty much perfect for including as many as possible. And it really comes down to just, a few who may not meet what we're doing at the moment. Doesn't mean that they won't eventually. And then we also, we'll say, well, if you really can't attend events due to whatever, and even if it's not a time thing, even if it's like just you're not ready yet or don't have that content yet, that's where we say, well, reach out to us, and then we'll figure something out. Because like 9 times out of 10, we can always organize something, or get somebody to see someone through something at the very least. But yeah, I think that was a good topic to address.
And we've done that for a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
that's actually how at the time Friday morning classics.
Yeah.
But now Tuesday morning that's how that event came to be.
Yeah.
It's exactly how it came to be. So.
Oh yeah.
There's only one problem when we do like we're going to do all 3 of the nears, and that is trying to remember how we actually do the first 2.
Oh yeah, because it's been a while.
It's like we haven't. At this point, but... Yeah, so what was it that we were supposed to do on this boss?
Well, I mean, you can always, take a test party in there and do it just to refresh.
Oh yeah, but we'll quickly go up there, especially like the boss on the last boss of tier, on the second tier raid, near raid, and it's like Okay, that one's a little rough.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
a little
mean,
rough. It's a
but
little rough
also,
to remember too, and call out at the
well,
same
also,
time
well, it's
sometimes.
also a little bit easier for us too because we're higher gear, higher level
That is
gear.
true. Even though it
So
sinks us down, but we still have. Even if you sink down, you're still
Still got
way
mechanics.
better geared than you
Yeah.
were when we first going in brand new.
Oh, right,
man.
right, right.
I don't even want to think about some of that gear.
Yeah.
Some of that gear was just brutal.
Well, before we move on to talk about Azure Day, I also wanted to give a shout out to our 60-day FF14 subscription giveaway that's going on right now on our Azure Infinitum Twitter. I believe, let's see, we got 5 days until that ends. This podcast episode should be out by then. If it's not, then congratulations to the winner. But for right now, we are. Hey, you know, sometimes stuff happens. But we're giving away one 60-day game time card to a random person that actually follows Azure Infinitum on Twitter. They tweet. Well, look for the tweet, retweet with a quote about why you love Azure Infinitum or FF14, and we'll be picking a random winner. This giveaway was actually courtesy of Valinda Malakas. I believe I'm saying that right. In our community, and we want to thank her for her courtesy of donating that. And now we can move on to Azure Day coverage. Holy crap, what a weekend that was. Boy, that was
Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, you missed it. But there will be more.
I think this is the first group picture that all the three of us are in.
Yeah, I could tell
Yeah, that's where it's
that
like,
Stefan was
Stefan.
missing.
Real life happens, you know.
It does. Yeah, that's totally understandable.
But I think this is one of the first that the three of us, you, me, and Stefan, aren't in together.
Yeah, it's been a while. So
And I missed the parade.
the first day was Saturday, March 13th, 2021. We began with opening ceremonies. That was pretty nice. We just kind of went over, the weekend. We did a couple big raffles to kick things off. We had our darts tournament edition, which was pretty awesome. We had a lot of people who had never seen darts before, and they were like, "Oh wow, what is this?" And we always start at that place in Curtis Central, White Brim Tower.
Yeah. And then everyone just dropping and going, "Oh my god!"
Oh yeah. If you're listening and you don't know what darts tournament is, darts in RFC is basically the same as darts in other MMOs that other guilds have invented. That's kind of where we got the idea, but I tweaked it a little bit. It ends up being kind of an elimination style tournament, and it involves people gathering in a certain spot that's high up, and then at a certain point after a countdown, we all jump to target, usually a target that's like far down. Like you can look down and see it. Specifically, the one I always start with, or the one I like to start with, is that one in Central Curtis over White Brim Tower, which is just west of the Steps of Faith. And that spot specifically, when you look down, there's a fire pit, and it looks like there's a little hole in the top. It looks like it could be a bullseye. So that was just a pure luck that we discovered that back in like 2015, and people have loved having that as like an Azure Day staple every year. And so it's an easy event. It usually doesn't take the full hour that we schedule it for, but it's perfect because when it's over, it leaves about a good 10 minutes or so, a good 10-15 minutes before the next event. And the next event that we had after that was a parade, so that was perfect because we got to have plenty of time to gather for the parade. And this darts, I apologize, I cannot remember everybody who won events during the weekend. Things get really, really hectic during that time, but we had some great prizes, and we had 3 winners at the end. I know, oh man, I almost remember who it was, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I know Ari was one of them, I think, but I can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. Oh, it's terrible. I should write these down sometime, and then I can announce them later. That'd be cool. But yeah, we had not only the bullseye one, but we also had the one where you have to jump on the bridge with the line, and then you have to get as far over as you can on the bridge in Eastern Lenosha. Just a little north of Costa del Sol. There's another little, I don't know, what do you call those little umbrella bridge things, and we just jump off of the cliff and try to land on this line, and it's funny because people can actually overshoot it, and you hear people scream as they're falling down, just all the bodies, and yeah, it's wonderful. We also jumped off the observatorium in Central Kurthis, and it made it kind of easy because we didn't have to change zones for the first one, and we just had a little area down there. Oh yeah, it was foggy. Do you guys remember that? How foggy it
Yes,
was?
it was.
Oh my
Yes.
god, it
We
was
had to get
so
the phoenixes
foggy.
out to make just like a giant star.
That's
Make a
right, yeah.
giant Phoenix ball.
In the screenshots, somebody took a screenshot of all the Phoenix mounts like bundled together to make a spot where people that are way up on this tower could see, and it just looked like a neutron star forming in the mist of the fog. It was pretty.
bright.
It was pretty hilarious.
And if you
Yeah.
were standing
Yeah.
inside that fire, you just couldn't see anything.
Oh yeah, yeah. But Parade March was great. That's our typical parade for Azure. We start outside of Gridania, or inside Gridania, I should say, and then we go outside Gridania, go all the way on a path that leads through the original city-state zones and the city-states and their zones, and stopping along the way at various pubs and establishments to do kind of like almost like a pub crawl parade, and then we give out prizes and raffles. And then we had the usual onlookers who were like, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
Usually,
Hey,
like,
we've had a
people join
couple
during it.
people join because of this.
Exactly. Yep, that's what I was about to
Yeah.
say. We usually have people join.
Azure Anniversary Weekend. That's how we got Giza. He saw the blue Colt and Linz and wanted to join.
Oh, was
And
that
Giza-
how?
and Giza's,
Okay.
Yeah, Giza's still
Yeah.
around too.
That's right. That's right. Man, that feels like forever ago, even though it was only like 5 months.
I
Yeah.
think
well,
Giza's on a small hiatus before 5.5.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just funny because I mean there are parades that happen in this game that other people do. It's not like completely abnormal, but you just don't see it that much. And when you do see it, it's usually for like another purpose.
And you don't see 100 people doing it.
Oh yeah. Did we have 100 people?
We had I think 84.
Okay. Well, it was a pretty big parade, and it's hard for me to see because I'm always guiding the parade, right? So like I try to look behind me, and I can't see how far back it goes. So that gives you an idea of how long it was. And then of course we have our commemorative FC group screenshots that we do. That's always on Azure Days or Azure Days, Azure Summerfest, and Azure Seasonal Days. Big group shots. We got some nice ones this time. We get nice ones every time, but we had some really like extra big ones. That one outside the house in front of the door had like 4 rows of people, as opposed to like 2 to 3, and
It was
almost a
gorgeous.
fifth
some
row.
Some of the portraits were gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it was really awesome. I know Sanguine even has like a printout of one of them, so that was really awesome. Also debuting this past weekend, Azure Lollaball Grand Prix. That was a hit. Oh my god.
That was just chaos.
It was a
chaos, and
hit.
It was wonderful.
And people were like asking, "Can we please have this at the next one?"
Can we do this again? Can we make it a regular event?
So what's Lollaball? Lollaball is a spin-off of Ballafell, which was invented by somebody. I don't know 100% who invented it, but I do know that the fine folks that came as guests to watch were people who helped pioneer it, I guess. And they were friends of our scout, I think, Scout Sergeant Delphi.
Yes, Delphi.
That's right.
Delphi.
And so she got to, I don't know exactly how that worked out, but I know that she got to know them.
Invent it.
Okay, they
Yes,
kind of helped invent it.
Yeah, the group that came by to stop by the house that are friends with Delphi, they are actually the people who had invented it, and they were actually very impressed with the arena that we had built outside of Lieutenant Ari's house.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, Azure Sports Arena. That's a new thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lollaball basically just involves having these 2 sides. We use the decks that are out for the outside of estates. We have 1 red, 1 blue, and there's a little striking dummy in the middle because everybody has to be in combat. It's a blue mages only, and they use this water push thing spell to push.
Maelstrom of something.
That's malediction of water. That's what it was.
Malediction of water.
And they push the Lalafell, who acts as the ball, all across the arena back and forth. So basically soccer, but blue mages, and it's pretty hilarious with Lalafell as the ball. And I know Lagnus was our main ball for a while, followed by Wispy, and it was a good time. It was a good time. We had some good laughs. We had 2 Azure teams face each other for the prizes, and then we had kind of an exhibition match where the the folks who had helped pioneer Balafel were there to challenge an Azure team, and so that was pretty fun to watch too. And I think what were they called? The like the Underfrogs or something?
The
Yeah,
Underfrog,
the
the red
Frog.
Is this
Underfrogs.
related to dwarf tossing?
It might as well be.
Could be. It was really funny to watch, and we got a couple good screenshots. And I know that the folks who had pioneered it, they had some Twitch videos and stuff like that that we kind of took some notes from, and it just turned out really great. It was originally suggested by Delphi as well in our Eventure Time planning Discord, and so just we were able to fit that into Azure Day really quick, and just man, it really took off. Thank you to Ari for allowing us use of your mansion property, which also held the Azure Day Maze on Sunday. Man, that maze.
That was a maze that triggered my claustrophobia hard.
From what some people were saying, I'm actually glad I didn't go inside of it.
Oh yeah, 3 stories of maze, 3 themes this time, instead of just being random colors, which people have in the past called the Azure Seizure Hut. This time we actually had an underground level that was very, very, very green with lots of verdant partitions, so all the plants coming off, and kind of had this like watery abandoned factory / ruin or something that was like at the bottom with all these doors and torches, and it was kind of ominous when you get down there because you pass through, like the beginning is like this happy yellow like chocobo themed floor, and then the top floor is pink flowers and blue sky, and then you get down to the bottom and it's just like this dark ominous dungeon. And some people got really they got really turned around in there. A lot of good comments. A lot of people said it was the best one yet, and I'm really proud of it. I worked on it myself for 2 days. 2 days. I can't remember how many hours I put into it, but it was fun.
A lot.
It was fun. I tested it a million times. Had all kinds of extra things this time, where before we usually just kind of use walls and then hidden objects and then doors as well. This time we used doors, walls, hidden objects, plus decorations. I actually decorated it a bit more than usual, just to kind of give it a more, I don't know, excuse me, give it more of a theme, I guess. I guess you could say.
And one of our members who was not partaking in the event actually trolled the FC pretty hard because they put a list of items that they made up in their head in the FC chat, but they made it look like they were trying to tell you for it.
Did that happen?
And got a whole bunch of people freaking out in the FC chat.
I didn't even know that
That
happened.
was hilarious. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my god. See, here's the thing. I stand at the end of the maze, and the goal, see, this isn't just a maze. This is 3 stories inside of a Final Fantasy XIV mansion hall, and not only do you find the end of the maze, that's not the end. You have to actually find all the hidden objects and then send me a private message with all of the correct items, of which there were 8. And so these things included like a bust of the emerald weapon, which was gigantic, and then a little tiny little Kojin, a tiny little chocobo here and there. And so like there was very things like that were here and there, and they had to find them all. A lot of people got 6 or 7, and they were like missing 1. And then some people had like 5 and 4, and I told them, I was like, no, you got way more to find. And this time I think might have been a record attendance, because one thing I noticed that stood out huge on my end as being the person at the end and the person that has to get the tells, there were so many more people crowded in the little room I was in at the end, and there were so many tells I was getting that the rate that I was responding to people was actually slower than ever. But I was painstakingly made sure that every reply I gave was in the order in which I received the tells, so that way it was still fair. But holy crap, was that difficult, because I was in voice on Discord while people were asking questions in my ear, while I was answering questions in game, while I was adding up what people had found. And what makes it even more difficult was the fact that the tells I was receiving didn't fully describe all the items. Like, people didn't know the names of all of the things that were in there. I tried to pick things, Chocobo, Moogle, but there was a few extra things, like I don't remember what people were calling which thing, but I know that the Kojin was really hard for people. Like a lot of the people did not say Kojin, and so I couldn't figure out what they were describing. I had to figure it out as best as possible. And our rules for the maze was that as long as you can, describe it enough for me to know what you're talking about, that counts. You don't have to be exact on it. But there were little chocobo pillars that were decorating the top floor in the very beginning, and people thought that those were the hidden items. And I had to keep explaining that the chocobo pillars were not the hidden items. And people were trying to describe Emerald Weapon who had never seen or heard of Emerald Weapon before. That was interesting. That was really, really interesting. They're like guy with all the hands. And I was like, okay, that one's easy. But then they'd say something else that was like totally off, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't know what and they're like, oh, they're talking about Emerald Weapon. And there was a couple other ones too. There was a couple other funny ones. But one interesting thing about that maze, and then we'll move on, was that it had some psychological elements to it. Places where you could see through to other sides, but you didn't know how to get there. And certain corners where there would be lighting, or there would be an object really close by that would make you feel like there was something around that corner, but it would like lead you to nothing. And so I tried to be really extra tricky this time. And one thing for the folks that couldn't find me, there was a spot in the back left corner where there was a cactar that was one of the hidden objects. And the way that the wall was positioned with the spot that the cactar was sitting, it was a cactar lamp, it looked like, oh, you found the cactar, there couldn't possibly be anything behind it. And what you had to do was you actually had to either run through or jump over the cactar or run slightly around it, and then turn your camera to the right, and you would just barely see this little tiny narrow path that was just big enough for a character to fit down. And only unless you turned your camera all the way around would you see this path, and that's the path that led to the final room. It was really tricky, but I really enjoyed making that maze, and I think that was a big highlight of Azure Day. A lot of people have not seen something like that done before. I know our last maze, we had new members that didn't even know that was possible in 14, but I mean, hey, with walls and space, you can pretty much do just about anything. So if you didn't make it to see the maze this time, it's actually still up. It's actually still up if anybody wants to check it out. All the items are still in it. You can try to find them all and then send me a DM if you want to see if you're right. I won't say what all of them are. I know I said a couple of them already, but it's just for fun. There's no prizes now at this point. It's still up. We don't know when we're taking it down, but we're taking it down at some point. I know Ari's not getting she's not moving her mansion until Ishgard, and I don't know if she's going to decorate it for a while. So it'll be up for a little bit. So just ask us if you want to know where it's at. Send me a DM. I don't mind sending you over there. And it is in Shirogane, so you got to make sure you can get there. Friend Ari in a state teleport. Aside for that, we had things like Trivia Rush, Manhunt, Woodsman Challenge. Those were interesting things. Trivia Rush has actually become a staple on Azure Day. It's something that kind of started during another event that wasn't Azure Day, and then it just got turned into an Azure Day event. But it's a little trivia race on top of Manhunt, which we did a classic version of this time. No special like expansion versions of it, because we want to try to include as much people that can make it as possible. And then Woodsman Challenge is something that has not been an Azure Day in about 2 to 3 years, roughly, probably 3 years. We haven't done Woodsman Challenge. Bear fighting, search and rescue, log chopping. Oh yeah, and I had the best hiding spot, by the way.
That hiding spot
Yeah.
was illegal.
That is not a hiding spot.
I had the best hiding spot.
No.
Behind a
no.
wall that no one could see.
Mhm.
Oh boy. Well, for those who were there, 100% visible. 100% visible. Hey, it counted. It counted. Well, Sunday, March 14th, 2021 had our Azure Cup Chocobo Grand Prix. We had our Super Duper Hide and Seek, our Glamour Contest and Fashion Show, which had some really, really, really creative and amazing glamours that showed up there. I think my favorites, I mean, everybody did an amazing job, but my personal favorites, I think, was one, we had Johnny Silverhand, done by Alice. That really impressed me. I wasn't even seeing that coming at all. And then we saw Grumpy and Gracie do Starfire and Raven from Teen Titans. That was pretty impressive. Everybody else did a really good job. We had
Laura do a very game accurate Chun-Li.
Oh yes,
Yes.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, very, very, very accurate. And then what was another one we had? We had a very buff Laura Croft.
Yeah,
Or
no, that
Steve
was,
Croft.
yeah, it
Steve
was Laura's
Croft,
brother,
yeah.
Steve.
Oh, good.
And
for once in Azure history, Reika
We got Reika
participated.
on the stage.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I had that one. I did that one a while ago when I first got into Bravely. I was like really, really super into Bravely Default. For those who weren't there, or those who don't remember, or didn't know who I was at the time, I did Agnes Oblige, the Vestal of the Wind Crystal from Bravely Default, and it actually was something I thought of when I very first saw that one piece come out, that one specific dress, the Thavnarian wool dress. Um, I immediately thought of Agnes because the bottom of her dress is actually furry or I think it's not a coat, it's a dress, I believe. It's actually furry, but it's like really dark. It's like black, and the rest is white. It doesn't have a corset like the one that the in-game that the Thavnarian Woolen dress does have, but it still reminded me a bit of her. And so basically, what I did was I just kind of like picked pieces that kept kind of the same aesthetic: thick boots and gloves, and white dress with the bottom being black, which I think really stands out in her design just overall. And then, of course, I had to change my character's hair, make it brown, which is something that I've only done maybe 3 times in the history of my character. There was a time we did a Wizard of Oz group, and I had my character be Dorothy. So that was a long time ago. But that was funny, too, because we even had like the lion, the Tin Man, like everything. Even before Rothgar, we had lion because of that one lion mask thing. And so it was pretty funny back then. But I did Agnes, and it was the first time for an Azure Day glamour contest that I actually entered it. I didn't enter for prize though. I just wanted to show off. But having the fairy as a scholar was something I didn't do the last time I did it. The last time I did it was at a Halloween thing that we did a few years ago. So that was kind of fun. That was fun to actually do that. And I think people who appreciate Bravely and appreciate that character were blown away, and maybe anybody that learned it looked it up. But I had fun doing that. The last time I did it, I actually tried to include her staff, which I used this one Black Mage Garuda staff for to try to replicate one of the staffs from Bravely. But yeah, we had a lot of great entries. I think everybody did a fantastic job at the Glamour contest and fashion show. That's always something that's looked forward to. A lot of people will plan in advance some really creative glamours. You'd be surprised what people can accomplish in this game. And shout out to Akio for giving us that stage. You worked really, really hard on building a pretty epic stage for us, and seeing it all filled up with people and the audience filled up was just really nice as well. And the rest of Azure Day had our POTD team race, Dashing Dungeon Delvers. Several teams that competed and then got themselves some real beautiful glamour weapons. We ended up having a tie on that one, which is not very common for POTD races. Usually people are even separated by one floor, even much less on the exact same floor when the time is called. So that was impressive. We ended up just giving glamour weapons first place prizes to the both teams that tied.
What's funny about that this time was we all felt like we were going really slow. For some reason, it felt like we were going down POTD just slow, and we weren't. It just felt that way. And I don't know if Seb, I don't know if your team felt like that too, but
well, I had to take over because Reika had some real life pop up.
Mhm.
But from what I can tell from the people who were going to be in my team, they felt like it was actually going pretty quickly. They were actually kind of worried they were going a bit too far, but it turned out that they were actually right smack in the middle. So
yeah, I mean, it's sometimes you feel like it's going really quick and you're getting through floors really fast. And I think the highest we've ever I think the highest we've ever saw was like what 55, 60, something like that. But
overall, perhaps, but in this
this one it was 37.
Yes.
And it was 2 teams getting to 37, and it was just very different.
Well, finishing off Azure Day was the Azure Day auction, taking place the same stage that we had the group shot, or not, sorry, not the group shot, the contest glamour fashion show. We did have a nice new, or second day commemorative group shot at the photo booth, the Azure Day photo booth that was in the first floor of the hall. And one of the most unique things we've ever had returned Azure Bard Night, and this time it was even more unique than ever before. Instead of our community bards just kind of like randomly playing songs and stuff like that, we had some nice random songs, but we actually the meat of the event turned into a concert that we had. Sebastian, Shalindra, why don't you guys tell us more about that?
Oh,
So-
go for it, Seb.
Yeah, the whole thing. So here is a little bit of a funny story about it. It originally started with an idea that Ari and I were both discussing. Is that Bard Night? It's normally singular bards just kind of doing their own thing, and Ari and I had the idea. Well, why don't her, I, and Alice just do the Endwalker theme because it can be done trio. Well, we started asking around to see if maybe we could find some other people who would want to help out with that. And it actually turned out there were actually a lot of people within the community who wanted to do a sort of performance. And so during the auction, we actually had Ari, I, Shal, Sanguine, Lore, and Anna all practicing the on the bards and trying to figure out how we were going to do our orchestral performance. And about midway through, we actually built a spreadsheet of, okay, here's how we're going to play each bit, and also here's the order of the songs we're going to be going in. We started originally with I don't remember what we started with, but then we went over to Rickrolling the whole
Yeah, I was gonna say we
FD.
did Rickroll everybody.
Yeah. Then we went into Bohemian Rhapsody, and then afterwards, Ari, along with a few of the other people, went over and they played the 15 theme, Noctis, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
yes, yeah,
yep.
Somnus Memories.
Yes.
Yep.
Somnus Memories. Yep. And then right after that, we had our original plan of Ari, Alice, and I playing the Endwalker theme. And I know that
You
was
and you and I played a couple things together, and
Yep.
Anna and I did, and I mean we just had a great time.
Yeah, we there is actually right now, because of that event, I went and created in conjunction with the people who were there in Azure Bard Music a Discord where we have all the stuff that you need to get yourself set up to actually start playing, and it's full of all of us who are there, so we can give you pointers on it, and it's also kind of how we're going to be planning for future events. So if that's something that you want to partake in, like, that is open to all Azure members.
And we do weddings and bar mitzvahs as well. So
Yep.
Well,
birthdays, weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it, we'll do it.
Yeah, the Bard event was extremely successful. There was a good number of people during and after the event, private telling us how they were moved by it, because we did play some very moving songs.
mhm,
I know for you, Reika, Somnus was a very moving song for you, since that's one of your favorites.
mhm,
And we also had that the Zelda medley that we did.
Yep.
mhm.
And I know that really drew a lot of people too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely have to say that there was some kind of something in the air. Like there was a moment where you guys, like for those who weren't there, these guys were all outfitted. It was beautiful. They had shining gold suits, and then the ladies had metallic light blue outfits, and it was just so like in sync. They were lined up. It was just very organized. And the songs, of course it takes a little bit to try to sync them sometimes, so everybody can hear them properly in the game. But all of these bards playing these songs, and then you had on the other side of the yard so many members in the yard, sitting at tables, sitting on the grass, standing on different things, and watching, and so it kind of captured the attention of so many people who were there watching, and it really felt like a little concert that we were having. And it was such a nice thing to have right before our closing ceremonies, which was really just kind of a few speeches that we just kind of close out the weekend with. and it really felt like it really, like Bard Night, the way, especially the way it was done, was a beautiful, calm, really chill end to Azure Day Weekend. And like this is our first Azure Day Weekend of 2021, and we've celebrated all weekend long, and then here's this like super nice chill end. And when Somnus came on, Somnus, the original title is Somnus Nemoris, which is like Latin for Dream of the Wood. And basically that song, oh my God, like that's an emotional song because of what it means in 15, which unless you actually have played through the final DLC and watched the anime episode that goes with it, you actually don't know what that song means unless you know about the history of the first king of Lucius in Final Fantasy 15. But it's so emotional, and when it hit like the yard, there was just like this feeling of like emotion that people had, and I started to like tear up because I was like, man, we had such an amazing weekend, and we like planned all this stuff, and it was successful, and here we are in 2021, and we've come through all these months of not rebuilding, but like restructuring things and overhauling things, and then now we're starting this year. It's the expansion year. It's the first Azure Day of the expansion year, and here we are. We're doing this, and it was just like so. It was so like all those feelings at one time. That's just really what it felt like.
We brought the thunder.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And the it was just it was really nice. It was really, really nice.
Yeah.
And that was a great finale. Great finale for Azure Day Weekend.
It was.
So thank you
It
guys
just
for putting
goes
that
to show
together.
that every single Azure Day is always going to have something unique to it.
We try. Yeah.
hey,
We certainly
even-
try.
Hey, we even played a lullaby.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was definitely
We were playing
Lullaball
a
happened.
we were given a preview at lullaby for what was going to be coming up.
Okay, so moving on here, patch 5.5 is imminent. It is within about 2 weeks from now, which I guess that counts as imminent in the grand scheme of things. There's some unique stuff going on this year. We've got a 2-part patch. It's the first time they've done this in a really long time. I don't remember this happening since patch 2.5, which was done in 3 parts back in 2015.
I remember that.
Okay, so they are dropping a lot of content on a spread over 2 parts, and I believe that they mentioned that the near raids, the current 24-man raids for Shadowbringers, is happening in which normally happens in 3 parts. The 24-man raids per expansion. This time we have a 4th part. We don't know if that's another raid or not, though. That could be a story quest thing that kind of finalizes the whole near 14 crossover. We're not sure. We're not sure how that's going to go. But other than that, we are we're pretty excited for what's to come. And it's also kind of a way that here's all this stuff now, here's all this stuff later in part 2, and then Endwalker. So this is a busy year. On top of Azure's, Rising project, and on top of, this content, this is a busy year. And let's see, one at a time here. We'll just go Sebastian, Shald, and Stefan. Give us your predictions for 5.5. What are you expecting?
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this very spoiler free.
Okay.
But the objects and the greater, I guess you want to call summon that Fan Daniel showed us are going to be extremely relevant in this. Also, as well, since it seems very obvious that they're setting up Xenos to be something that carries over into the next expansion, I do very much see we're going to have some sort of cliffhanger critical moment with him that's going to sail us straight into the very beginning of Endwalker. Because with what they're doing so far, it makes it seem like instead of the muted kind of beginning that Shadowbringers had, we're going to be going straight into the fire when it comes to Endwalker.
Yeah. I agree there.
Okay.
That's my predictions.
Okay. And I guess I should have said it earlier. Spoiler alert, just in case.
Yeah.
Although Seb did say, limited spoilers. But what about you, Shal?
I'm looking beyond 5.5, and I'm
Mhm.
looking at 6.0 also, going, okay, this will be the first time we've had a 4-part 24-man raid.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of going, okay, so something epic's going to happen in part 3 that we're now going to have to resolve in part 4.
Do you think it's going to be a 4-part raid? Do you think it's not going to
I
just be
think
a
it'll be
story quest?
I think it'll be a 4-part raid.
Okay.
Where they're just going to continue and somehow integrate the entire story together.
The first ever 4-part raid.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we've never had anything like that before. But I also think that, and just looking back at the what the special website that's up,
Yeah.
that's up.
I've got
I'm
it up right now too.
really interested in seeing the cloud deck.
Yeah, the cloud
Really
deck.
looking forward to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
They really haven't given much info on it yet, but I'm very, 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 very interested in seeing what they do with it. I'm also looking forward to the augmented crafted gear. You know,
Mhm,
getting everyone ready and set for 6.0 to drop.
Mhm.
And there's also a performance update. So hey, who knows? But I mean, that's really what I'm looking forward to at this point.
What about you, Stefan?
Well, uh, this is, for spoiler alert, not necessarily of the next patch, but it's really more of a concern of 6.0.
Okay.
And I've been thinking about this for a while. Is, well, one, if you saw whoever saw the announcements, they're getting rid of the belts, which is not really a problem.
Mhm.
But is the changing of the numbers.
Right. Right.
The for some people that know, they're changing the formula or lowering, I think how they explained it to was they're running into issues on the server because the numbers are getting too big, and they're running into issues. If you crit for 500 trillion points,
Mhm.
it'll crash the game, something like that. And this is just a recent thing I found out. Uh, World of Warcraft has done this exact same thing.
Twice, actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say they did it twice.
Yeah. For example, they just had their recent expansion, and I had a character on there that was what, level 80, 90. It's now level 50.
Mhm.
They shrunk everything. So my concern is that we're used to the solid gameplays we're in, but I think when they shrink the numbers, I think I'm worried about the gameplay might be slightly different, and
Well,
Okay.
and it's gonna be hard to fix.
I think we'll adapt to it. I mean, look at all the healers that had to adapt to only 10,000 MP. I mean, we
True,
all had to readjust and relearn.
true. But see that was an issue just directly to healers. But this is everything.
Well,
Not only your interactions with your character, with the mobs, or the
Well,
dungeon.
I can say it this way: if they're gonna copy the same, if they're gonna not copy per se, but do it similar to how WoW has done it before, what's gonna happen is you're gonna notice your overall damage drop slightly, but the time to kill and the survivability is gonna be extremely minuscule. Like the numbers on your screen won't be as massive, but the time it takes you to kill that mob or that boss will change by maybe like 10, 15 seconds, if that.
Right. You see, if you're used to, for example, right now, man, I'm hitting some big numbers, and all of a sudden they change this. Man, my numbers are not hitting that high.
Mhm.
Well, and the thing is everybody knows it going in. So
True.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
but I think it'll finally fix that one thing that we ran into last. What was it? Friday, when we were taking you and a couple people through Alexander. Or no, when we were doing TMC last week with Alexander. There's one mechanic they had to hot fix, and that's when they do judgment. Spoiler alert. And that's when he does judgment because it hits for only 99,999. Well, we're going in there unsynced with 30% echo. I'm on a tank with 270,000 hit points. And what would end up happening, what broke or what would break with that was, you'd survive the mechanic and then you couldn't go anywhere. So basically, if he gets it off, it just fades to black. You restart. And I think that was their hot fix. I want to say about 6 months ago. So I think this may end up fixing that finally, and that's for people that still do some of the older stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that'll end. I think this rebalancing and renumbering will fix some of those issues, because I've seen that in some other fights too.
Yeah,
I
but
see.
speaking of rebalancing, to kind of back up Stefan, there is two negatives that come into effect. If it's done improperly, then it would actually make older content like 50 trials for Wondrous Tales and all that much more difficult to do, and wouldn't be so easy to face roll as they are now. But also as well, they would have to do it again, quite literally, the next expansion, because if they mess it up and lower the values too much, then the exponential power rate would get all thrown out of whack, and we would actually be going into the next expansion completely under geared and under stats.
Yeah.
So I had a thought. Well, first, was there anything else that you had, Stefan, that you were looking forward to?
No, that's right now, I'm always patch is always good because you always get to experience new stuff and all that. But that lingering, new, the new, of course, new expansion and all that, and we're going to have a great experience no matter what, that type of thing.
Right.
But I'm just a little concerned about the number shrinkage.
I see.
Even though it had to be done, but like Sebastian said, if they don't do it right, it may be detrimental to a lot of people.
Yep.
Well, one thing I was thinking of, I had a thought, and it's just kind of random thought that hit me yesterday. What if like this, because there's something else that's unique that's happening. Not only is expansion not launching at the usual time because, well, mostly due to COVID, or almost completely due to COVID. The other thing that's going on too is that the entire story of Endwalker is complete within 6.0, and once 6.1 begins, an entirely new MSQ starts. And so, what?
Hey, we were told that during the presentation.
Yes, I know.
We at least know that.
Right, we know that. So what I'm getting at is, what if they're doing a thing where they're kind of like resetting the game to the values that we kind of felt back in ARR, so that way, this whole Hydaelyn Zodiark saga, ends with a bang in Endwalker, but by the time it's time for 6.1 through 7.0 plus, it's like starting the game over again.
So we're going to keep the values through 6.0 until 6.1?
Huh? No, I'm saying like this is like getting ready for 7.0. Like the journey like 6.0 through 7.0 is now like ARR again.
Man.
And in a way, like, I was thinking too, I was like, Yoshi had an interview a few years ago where he said that they were exploring ways to get people into content without doing the content. So, like, for example, they had the jump potions, but that, I feel like that didn't really meet what he was saying. I think what he was saying was something more like with Final Fantasy XI, where even though I know this game is not 11, but in 11, there were, when I played, there were 4 expansions. There's more than that now. There's like, I think 5 and a bunch of special updates. But you didn't have to play any expansion in any order. You didn't have to go in order at all. You could actually just do the regular base stuff for 11 and go to like straight to the 4th expansion if you wanted to. And I know there's probably been other MMOs like that. I don't have a lot of experience with other MMOs besides 11 and 14, but I can tell you that I think this whole Hydaelyn Zodiark saga of ARR, Heaven's Word, Stormblood, Shadowbringers is going to eventually just kind of be looked at as like one big summed up batch, and then there's the next chunk, and that people might actually be able to join right into the next chunk, which is also going to keep newer players, from feeling like, oh, I got to go through 5 expansions in order to get to where everybody's at.
Something.
Because that's going to keep adding up over and over. Like every new expansion, eventually it's going to be, oh, I got to go through 10 expansions. So they're just going to end up summarizing all of it into one chunk, and the numbers will be reset just perfect in time for all that, is what I'm thinking.
The only MMO I'm familiar with that I have experience with doing that is Star Wars: The Old Republic, because once you hit 70, you can pick through. If you decide that you want to take the jump to 70, you can actually select any of the expansions, and you don't have to play through the initial 3-chapter
Okay.
class quests.
Yeah.
You can actually skip the first expansion, the
Hmm.
second one. You can go straight to the third one if you want, which is useful if you've already played through the story and you don't want to go through it again. But as far as I know, that's the only one I'm really familiar with that
Okay.
did it that way.
I wonder if they're looking at that because it could like say I don't know what like that, but my outlook is that at some point, and I've predicted almost every expansion in some form or another. My predictions have been true almost this entire journey. My next prediction is New World. Like the next expansion 7.0 is going to be an exploratory expansion where we're done with all the other stuff we've been doing. Now we're actually going to adventure to the New World, and that whole new continent that's out there to the west is ripe for a new expansion.
Well,
Like,
I mean, we haven't seen it yet, so
it is one of the top like noted things that people were guessing to be after Endwalker, and they prepared us with Blue Mage. We've heard a lot about it through the Blue Mage stuff and that lore, and now like I could easily see that being at least one direction besides Mericidia. Only problem with Mericidia is the place is war torn and full of Voidkin.
I mean, unless
since
we
the
restart
Allagan War and all that.
unless we
Yeah,
start rebuilding.
that's true.
Mericidia,
That's
but-
true, and that's a huge continent. That thing is like almost the size of the three great continents. I think they said. Way, way, way down south off the map. So, gotta hurry because we're really over time now. But I just wanted to go through real quick what to expect in 5.5. Not only do we have main scenario quests, we've got the new Alliance raid Part 3 of Yorha Dark Apocalypse for Nier. We've got the Pagletton Dungeon, which is actually something I've been talking about for years because it's been on the map, and it's actually an area that's east of Thanalan called Pagletton.
That we can't get
That
to.
we can't get to because it never became a zone, and now it's a dungeon. And they're doing the same thing with that they did with Zelfatol. I thought Zelfatol was going to be like a Stormblood area, and that we were going to actually travel through Zelfatol from the North Shroud as a way to come down from the north into the Garibanian region and invade to liberate Alamigo. I actually really, really was convinced of that. And yeah, we got to go there right before Stormblood, but we didn't go there during Stormblood. And it was a zone, or it was a dungeon, not a zone. But yeah, Pagletton. New Sorrow of Werelit stuff, along with the Cloud deck, which some of us know what that means. And I say that because there's a heavy, heavy, heavy spoiler in there.
Yeah.
I'd rather since some of us know, I'll just rather not say it. Just to spare some of those listening, because there's some people who really wanted to see this one specific thing that's coming in the Cloud deck. New Save the Queen battlefield, Zadnor. I guess that's like the next Bosja Southern Front, but it's like another battlefield. Zadnor. PS5
maybe?
version begins open beta as well when patch 5.5 launches on April 13th. That's just a couple weeks from now. New Unreal Trials coming out. Is Guardian Restoration updates. More custom deliveries. More of those. Hey, the more the merrier. I mean, it helps me get a ton of scripts, and there's usually some nice rewards, or something. This last one had a mount. It was pretty nice. Explorer mode gets an update. A lot of people have been wanting more stuff to do with Explorer mode. New Game Plus updates. I have not touched New Game Plus once. I don't have time for that. Performance updates, like Shal mentioned earlier. New mounts, new minions, new emotes to be expected, and more. And so my personal prediction is pretty much in the form of what everybody has said here tonight in this episode. It's what Seb said about the story. I fully resonate with that. Like, we're kind of leading into the setup for Endwalker. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but I know we're going to see that unfold heavily, probably within both patches of 5.5, both parts of it, because that's the one thing that's always really interesting is the 0.5 patch. You really see, that bridge to what's coming, but then what comes is like something you don't expect. Remember in 4.5 we got to see the Exarch for the first time, I think, and we didn't know who the heck he was. Well, some of us had an idea, but other than that, we didn't know who the heck he was and what the heck he was talking about. We didn't know much other than what were told by Fan Festival news about going to the first. But other than that, it was still a big shock compared to starting patch 5.0 in Shadowbringers. So it's like we're gonna see some stuff, but it's still going to be nothing compared to what surprises us when the expansion actually gets here. And that's been the same every single time. I mean, I remember when we did Steps of Faith, and we were expecting to go into Heavensward, but Heavensward wasn't just Ishgard. There was so much more to it. And then same goes for Stormblood and that whole journey to the Far East that included two regions, seeing Girabania and then also seeing the Far East at the same time. It was pretty incredible. I'm actually one of those rare people that liked Stormblood a lot. Yeah, I mean, just seeing that setting get set, but then waiting to be surprised for like what's coming. That's kind of like what I'm most excited for. I mean, we all kind of know the final battle's coming down with Zodiark and Fandaniel and Xenos, and we just don't know how it's going to happen. And I bet you it's not going to happen the way we think, because that's what the devs are usually always up to. They're trying to do things in a way that we don't guess. And sometimes we do a little, but yeah. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the numbers thing works, like Stefan brought up. And yeah, it's gonna be a time. And within all of that fun and all that discovery and all that content I just named that's coming, Azure is continuing to finish our final phase of our whole entire overhaul project that's been going since May of last year. And we are going to just thrive through these patches. We're going to adapt to the content. We're going to continue to grow, and then we're going to slam 6.0 really hard when we get there, and it's going to be really exciting. So lots of exciting stuff this year to look forward to. So for the last segment of our podcast on this episode, real quick here, guys, because we've gone over quite a bit. Let's quickly name some fun games that we like from Final Fantasy series or Square Enix. Starting with Sebastian.
Does it count if the series itself is owned by Square, but the original game did not come out when it was?
Sure, that counts.
Okay, then the original Deus Ex.
Oh yeah, fantastic series.
Yeah, for those who don't know the Deus Ex series, it's a series of RPGs that was made and originally, I forget who made it, I feel terrible for forgetting, but the developers were bought by Square, and they were the ones that made, Eidos Interactive, and they made Human Revolution, which was a very popular one that came out on the 360 and PlayStation 3. It's considered kind of like, when it comes to cyberpunk RPGs, Deus Ex is considered the godfather of it, simply for the fact is that when it came out, it was the very first what was called immersive sim RPGs that had heavy cyberpunk and dystopian elements. And it was also served as the inspiration for my favorite game and immersive sim, Vampire the Masquerade, which is where my name comes from.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yep. And then when it comes to Final Fantasy, bit of a hot take. I loved 7 Remake. I've never played the original 7, which I always tell people that is so that's kind of maybe why my opinion's slightly biased on that. But I thought the combat system and the storyline, what was expanded, because I remember hearing bits and pieces about the original story just through gaming. I thought that was a beautifully crafted story, and the ending, while I was a little bit confused on it, I was really looking forward to more. And that's it for me.
All right, yeah, good picks, very good picks. Shalindra.
I'll go even older, and this is even before they were even a part of Square, because it was Enix. I'm gonna go to Dragon Quest.
Oh yeah, classic.
And just the whole series itself, because that was one of the first, other than Zelda on the NES, that was one of the first things I played. Was Dragon Warrior 2, Dragon Warrior 3, at least localized in the US. Then it became, Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, and then everything else beyond it. But just the way Yuji Horii wrote the story, just absolutely incredible. And if anybody doesn't realize, Akira Toriyama, who's the mangaka for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball, he did the artwork. And it's just absolutely incredible, just how the whole series evolved. And I'm not even going to give a spoiler in case somebody wants to play, but 3 does not happen in the chronological order you think it does. That's going to be my one non-spoiler spoiler. But I just love the way that the whole world was built, where you started with this little tiny world, and then it became bigger, and then bigger, and then bigger, and then bigger. And by the time we got to 11, it was just this multi-world, multi-dimension. It was just absolutely incredible. And if I can't pick Final Fantasy, which I'm going to stay away, because everyone knows I love Final Fantasy as much as you do. I don't know as much of the lore as you, but if I'm not going to go that direction, I'm going to go Dragon Quest direction.
Oh, I had no idea you were a Dragon Quest fan like that.
Oh yeah, always have.
Nice.
And I mean, I used to design for our D&D campaigns, old tabletop stuff. We would take pieces from that universe and bring it into our D&D world, and it was just incredible.
Okay, wow.
And that's where I always go back to when it comes to classic stuff.
You really can't go wrong with Dragon Quest. I mean, not only did they, I mean, it's a huge, if you count the Japanese ones too, it's a huge library with a lot of genre. I mean, the majority is, just like FF, there is a lot of RPGs, but there's also a lot of other things that they've tried over the years, and, more than RPGs. And, kind of like Square has a bunch of like spin-offs that are, Chocobo racings and stuff like that, silly games, they're kind of spin-offs. There's a lot more of that on the Dragon Quest side, actually. If you really look into how many they've come out with over the years, there's a lot. And
the latest came out December. Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age. It's on Steam right now.
Yeah, 11's been a big hit.
11
a really big hit. I got the edition of Light, and I've been meaning to try it out sometime, but I haven't gotten the chance. I got it for Ari for her birthday as well, to introduce her to the series. My favorite Dragon Quest was 9.
Spoiler. Yeah. Does she know already?
Does she know?
Yeah.
Know what?
Are you going for her birthday? Or
her birthday was like 5 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seriously looking at it on Steam and very much considering buying the definitive edition of DQ11S.
Well, just speaking of Dragon Quest, I mean, this isn't for my pick later, but Dragon Quest 9 was my all-time favorite. I had a really good time going to the live events that we actually had here, and sharing maps and collecting people for your other players for your adventure guild and stuff. It's a pretty good time. I had a lot of good memories with 9.
Yeah, a lot of them are, and there's so many spin-offs too. You've got Heroes, you've got Builder, you've got
you got a lot. You got the slime games.
You got the slime games. You've got, I mean, there's
a lot. Oh, don't forget the Monsters series, Dragon Quest Monsters. Yeah, I don't know if you said that one or not.
No, I hadn't yet. I'd gotten there.
Did you have any other picks?
I mean, they're not. Unfortunately, it's not
Square
Enix, so I'm not going to go there with it.
Okay. Stefan.
Yeah, Jal kind of stole my thunder because I'm even older than him. I go way back further. But to me, I also played the Dragon Warrior series also, and that was my favorite. But for me, really, it was the very first Final Fantasy game that came out on the NES.
Oh, yes.
Okay, to me, for me, you're going to remember, I played RPGs on PC, Apple II and all that. This is where there was a game called Wizardry, Baldur's Gate.
I remember those.
Okay, all the stuff was, and even the original Dungeons and Dragons, the Gold Leaf from SSI, it's all the turn-based type RPG. Well, with the NES, this was the very first turn-based RPG that I ever saw and played. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Final Fantasy that came out in the United States for the first time was not really the first one. Was it the second one in Japan?
The very first one that came out in the United States was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the game that, one, I didn't have to have a computer, of course I have the NES and all this stuff. And, that's where the times when you're introduced to characters like Sid, the engineer, Airship, that we still have today. All this, even the classes that we have now red mage, black mage, fighter,
Monk.
monk, all this, and I remember playing it. That was one of the first games that I played all the way through. I remember how excited I was when I was able to get an airship and just go.
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
You got the floater with the
Yeah,
the staff, and I remember that
go
too.
and instead of here's the reason why is because you just trudging along because back then the games were grindy. You take 3 steps, encounter, take 3 more steps, random encounter. It just took forever to get anywhere. Of course, you did it because heck, by the time you get to center, you were way OP for a lot of this stuff. Man, I'm 20 levels higher than I'm supposed to be. But that's how the things work. That's how my style of playing. And I want to make sure have everybody's had all their spells, and that remember you have to go farm the guild and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy, that's what took me for the rest of the Final Fantasies. Now,
Nice.
some I didn't play all the way through, something like that. But that very first one is the one I did from start to beginning. Saw the whole thing, did the whole thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
You really can't go wrong with FF1. It is such a solid RPG, like all the way around. It's extremely well rounded, and even the anniversary editions and things that they've come out with over the years, like since, have just like kind of added on to that just a little bit, but while keeping the same the same charm.
Yeah, you just can't go wrong with it. And that first feeling you get when you first get the canoe.
Oh
You
yeah.
can bypass this whole one section.
Get around a
and then
little more. Yep.
And then you get the boat, and you're like, wow, the world just opened up. And then you get the airship, and I mean, I was 9. I was 10, 9, 10. That was what, 88?
Yeah, I was in my first
11.
year out of college in my very first apartment.
I was 11 when I
Wow.
started playing that, but even I grew up with some of the same games that Stefan had started with like Wizardry and Zork and the final the D&D stuff. But I would always come back to FF1, either FF1 or Dragon Warrior. Those were the two I would always go back to.
But the NES was the very first console that I paid for with my own money. And I was working, renting an apartment, starting my job. I moved away from home. This is the first time I moved away from home, and so that was it. So yeah, that's me.
Did you have any other picks, Stefan, or
that's really it because that's what started.
Okay.
That's the one that started this journey.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good one to go with. You can't go wrong with the original Final Fantasy. Well, for me, this is like really hard because as a as a Square Enix fanatic and Final Fantasy fanatic, I have so many that I love, and there's none that I hate. So, or none that I even dislike. My very, very, very first Final Fantasy game that I actually played was 7. I played 7 in 2003. I got 7 because I think I might have mentioned this when we talked about PS1 RPGs a few episodes ago. I got 7 because some guy traded some cards for it, some like Yu-Gi-Oh cards or something, and he one of the discs like didn't work, like the final disc or something like that. But he had like disc 1 in really good condition, and so he was like, well, you can at least play through a chunk of it to see how you like it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And for those who have played it, the disc 1's still pretty meaty, so that lasted me a while, and it really introduced me to the whole story. In fact, it's everything that you basically experience story-wise for the most part in Remake, the first part that's out right now, which is all the way up to the end when they get ready to leave Midgar. And so, and in the original, that like I said, that was a pretty meaty chunk of the game. So that introduced me to it. I had I knew the concept of RPGs, prior to that, but and JRPGs that I had played, but I had never played FF until I was 13. So that was in 03. And turns out I ended up loving it so much I wanted to go get the full version, and then that led to more and more and more and more and more, and just went down the rabbit hole from there. And while 7 isn't exactly my main pick right now for what we're talking about here, that's what got me into it, and that was my first one. My most latest one is actually a pretty rare title. It's called Chocobo and Sid's Magical Picture Book Journey, and it's basically Chocobo Tales 2 on the DS. And I had no idea that that actually existed, even though I pay attention to Japanese releases. That game just snuck out years ago, and then I never saw it like listed on anything, or I guess I didn't pay attention enough. But I was like, wow, I have to try this. So I got that one recently, and very very interesting that they had a lot of spin-offs like that. Blood of Bahamut was another that I got from Square Enix, my most recent purchase from them. And so throughout all of these years between this point and between the beginning, I have played and mostly completed their entire catalog of English and Japanese games, except for a few, and I'm still working on either getting time for those or hunting them down. There's only a few that I do not own. I'm trying to complete my entire collection. But one really fun thing, I don't think enough people talk about this series, so I'm going to actually pick this as one of the ones I want to mention just right here before we end this episode, is a series of Final Fantasy Dragon Quest combined. I want to use a combination of what you guys have mentioned. It is a crossover game called Itadaki Street, and it is a Mario Party-like game that includes characters from Final Fantasy all the way up to 15, and characters from Dragon Quest all the way up to 11, and at least in the most recent event.
Oh man.
And so,
okay, I gotta get a copy.
or the most recent game, yeah. And they're pretty hard to track down for PS4. They're on PS4, and one came out on PS2. There's PS2, PSP, and PS4. The PS4 one is close to $100 if you can get a copy. The Vita one, for the latest one, is a lot easier to get a hold of. And so if anybody's interested and want to check that out, depending on what you're willing to invest in, you can check it out a lot easier for the Vita. It's not hard to learn if you don't know Japanese. Like I said, it's very Mario Party-like, but it's hilarious because you have chibi versions, kind of half chibi versions of all of those characters, like all of those characters. You can even look it up. Itadaki Street, the 30th anniversary one for PS4 came out, and you can see on the cover there's everybody from Minfilia to Noctis to the original FF characters to all the Dragon Quest ones all the way to 11, like I said. And it's a really hilarious, fun, comical game. And for lesser known Square Enix titles that I would say are among my favorites, I have to name Itadaki Street as one of my all-time favorites. The first one I ever got to see was Itadaki Street Special on the PS2. I had no idea that it actually existed before that. And there's even one on the Wii that came out. There's one English one that came out on the Wii where it's a Dragon Quest Mario crossover, and it's plays, like I said, plays just like Mario Party, so natural for Mario to be in it. But it's Mario and Dragon Quest on the Wii, and it's called Fortune Street because that's actually what it means, Itadaki Fortune. So. And so you can actually play that one. There's also a Mario Dragon Quest Itadaki Street game that's on DS as well, but that one didn't get brought in the West, I don't think. And so the latest one is probably the best one. Next to, my favorite one is either the latest one on PS4 or the one on PSP, which came out right after Final Fantasy XII came out. So it was kind of a big deal that 12 characters got to be in it at that time on PSP. Prior to that, it was only everybody up to Final Fantasy X, and so when they brought it back and started having more characters, it was really cool. And that's kind of why the current one on PS4 is also really special, because everybody, like I said, up to Final Fantasy XIV characters, Final Fantasy XV characters, they're all in it with Dragon Quest XI characters, Dragon Quest X, 9, they're all in it. It's fun to have a team of characters from both franchises and then play the game, and it's a good time. It's a good time. Another one, I'm just gonna name a few off the top of my head.
I've got one that I'm surprised neither one of us mentioned.
What's that?
But okay, so Square Enix wasn't the actual developer, but they were the publisher. Was Star Ocean.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They were the publisher of that series.
Well, Enix. So Triace has developed Star Ocean, while Enix, was an Enix series for a very, very long time, all the way up until one of the very last games that Enix published right around the time of the merger was Star Ocean Blue Sphere, a much lesser known Star Ocean game.
Hasn't been released here.
which is one of the only Star Ocean games to have reoccurring main characters, because all of them have a different set of main characters. And I'm not talking about that one. What is her name? Welch. Not talking about her,
God.
but the guys from the folks from Star Ocean 2 were in Blue Sphere, and it came out on the Game Boy Color. And then after that, Tri-Ace developed Star Ocean 3 till the end of time as Square Enix. But I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think there are some copies that were still published in Japan at that time under Enix, even after the merger for a short time, because Enix still retained properties over certain published material. Like there's certain books I have that still say Enix on them. It's really interesting how that worked, how that works in general. But not to digress too much, that series is a fantastic series, fantastic Square Enix series. If you haven't played Star Ocean, go play it.
Absolutely wonderful.
I just got a copy of Second Evolution on PSP, and that would be my very first time ever playing Star Ocean 2 whenever I get to it. So, yeah. I can hear the sound in your voice.
Now
playing it? Yeah, I haven't played
What?
Star Ocean 2 yet. I know, right?
What?
Yeah, one of the best
Which is
RPGs of all
technically
time.
Well, okay, with Star Ocean
Yeah.
1 here, but
Yeah.
but no, I'm literally.
Well,
in
you want to know
shock.
something? Did you know that? Do you know about First Departure R, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know there was a Second Evolution R that never came out here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's horrible, because typically what we're talking about is the remake of Star Ocean 1 and 2. The remake of the remake was the remake was called First Departure on the PSP.
Departure.
And it was just on the PSP. That was it. But it was a beautiful remake of Star Ocean 1. Star Ocean 1 never had an update at all forever since being on Famicom. And then Star Ocean 2 was on Super Famicom, and then it got a sort of PS1 remake-ish, and then they had a remake of the remake on PSP for Star Ocean 2. Now they had a remake of the remake that came out as Second Evolution R. And so First Evolution only has a remake of the remake, while Second Evolution has a remake of the remake of the remake, and the remake of the remake of the remake is on PS4, and the other one is on PS4 as well, but they're not available across country. Like only one of those is available in English, and it left everybody wanting a PS4 version of First Departure R. And sorry, not just PS4, Switch as well. And I don't know if it's on PC. Do you know?
Nothing I'm aware of.
Well, Star Ocean, fantastic series. Itadaki Street, that's one of my picks for a lesser known Square Enix series. I can't decide between the rest of FF. It's just so hard for me. But I would like to give a shout out to World of Final Fantasy. I don't think that game is appreciated enough. It is a really quirky, like monster collecting sort of Pokemon-ish, game that's Final Fantasy, and celebrates most of the series. Although I hear that there's a few that actually weren't included, like main ones, like 2 or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, I would have to say those are 2 major ones. Also not widely known is the Lord of Vermilion series, which is mostly an arcade in Japan, but Lord of Arcana was a really great Vita and PSP Monster Hunter style game that the series also has a lot of crossover characters. Believe it or not, there were Persona characters in it as well, along with Square Enix heroes in Lord of Vermilion. And so anybody who likes Persona and also likes Final Fantasy would probably really enjoy that if you were able to play it, but it's only in Japanese. So those are my picks. And one quick shout out to Collection of Mana. That's a beautiful collection, HD collection of the first 3 Mana games, aka Second Densetsu in Japanese. So I can say with that, that would be the end of this episode. We want to thank you guys for listening. We went over a lot today. This is probably one of our longer episodes. We had a lot of updates to talk about, 5.5 predictions, lots of Azure Day talk, and just remembering how fun that weekend was, and then going over some of our favorite games that are different than probably a lot of what we usually talk about. I know we talk about a lot of 14 on this podcast, due to our 14 community being the meat of Azure Infinitum. But it gave us a chance to talk about, classics that we love. and also some not widely talked about games like Itadaki Street. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Have a good one, everyone.
Have a
See you
great
later.
one.